If we wanted to fight a war in Afghanistan and win it, I could win that war in a week. I just don't want to kill 10 million people. Does that make sense to you? I don't want to kill 10 million people. I have plans on Afghanistan that if I wanted to win that war, Afghanistan would be wiped off the face of the earth. It would be gone. It would be over literally in 10 days. We were leaving Afghanistan with dignity and strength. Biden left in shame and defeat. A defeat like this country has never suffered before. You got a $50 million airplane. You got a $29 million gorgeous helicopter. We had every type of helicopter. Many of them brand new, literally out of the box. $70 million planes. You mean you think it's cheaper to leave it there so they can have it than it is to fill it up with a half a tank of gas and fly it into Pakistan or fly it back to our country? You think, yes, sir, we think it's cheaper, sir. That's when I realized he was an idiot.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
For years, Donald Trump has used the United States withdrawal from Afghanistan as a stick to beat Biden and the Democrats with. But as his campaign gets increasingly desperate, his wild lies are finally coming back to haunt him.
As I recall, and I think it's laid out in the SKEWERED report, the special IG for Afghanistan, there's about 80 some odd billion dollars worth of military aid total. That's everything from food and building barracks and uniforms and boots to include equipment. Over 20 years. Right. And then he cites, I think it's $7.2 billion of military equipment, U.S. manufactured military equipment that is with the Afghan security forces. That's Afghan-owned equipment, not American equipment. Every piece of American equipment that the American military owned came out with us with Scott Miller, or he destroyed it on site. And that's a fact. So the idea that the American
this attack on Biden for not taking the equipment back is total
Chair
bunk.
recognizes Mr. Wilson, South Carolina.
In the fall of 2020, my analysis was that an accelerated withdrawal without meeting specific and necessary conditions risks losing the substantial gains made in Afghanistan, damaging U.S. worldwide credibility, and could precipitate a general collapse of the ANSF and the Afghan government, resulting in a complete Taliban takeover or general civil war. That was a year ago. My assessment remained consistent throughout. Based on my advice and the advice of the commanders, then Secretary of Defense Esper submitted a memorandum on 9 November recommending to maintain U.S. forces at a level between about 2,500 and 4,500 in Afghanistan until conditions were met for further reduction. 2 days later, on 11 November 2020, I received an unclassified, signed order directing the United States military to withdraw all forces from Afghanistan no later than 15 January 2021.
You could be forgiven for thinking that Trump failing to listen to a four-star general's advice was just stupidity, but Trump's motives were much more sinister than that.
Very shortly after the election, the Trump campaign recognized that they had likely lost the election, and they informed Donald Trump of that fact. Even before the networks called the race for President Biden on November 7th, his chances of pulling out a victory were virtually non-existent, and President Trump knew it.
Do you know if anybody ever told the president that he had lost and that there wasn't a chance of him winning?
I know that the president, when the networks called it, of course, he was informed about the network decision. That afternoon, at some point, myself and a handful of other folks went over and sat down with the president and communicated that the odds of us prevailing in legal challenges were very small.
You know, after the election, as of November 7th, in your judgment, what were the chances of President Trump winning the election?
After that point?
Yes.
None.
At times, President Trump acknowledged the reality of his loss. Although he publicly claimed that he had won the election, privately he admitted that Joe Biden would take over as president. Here's a few examples of that.
So we're in the Oval and there's a discussion going on. and the president says, I think it could have been Pompeo, but he says words to the effect of, yeah, we lost, we need to let that issue go to the next guy, meaning President Biden.
Knowing that he had lost and that he had only weeks left in office, President Trump rushed to complete his unfinished business. One key example is this. President Trump issued an order for large-scale U.S. troop withdrawals. He disregarded concerns about the consequences for fragile governments on the front lines of the fight against ISIS and al-Qaeda terrorists. Knowing he was leaving office, he acted immediately and signed this order on November 11th, which would have required the immediate withdrawal of troops from Somalia and Afghanistan, all to be complete before the Biden inauguration on January 20th.
Look, at this point, Donald Trump's total indifference to the lives of service members is very well known and very well documented. But the idea that he would use military personnel and risk the lives of so many people just to score some political points, that's still shocking, even for Donald Trump. His lies are wearing thin, and the more steam that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz gain, the more he's relying on his same old tired lies and insults. It's getting more and more obvious, I would say indisputable, who the real effing idiot is. And shocker, it's not the 4-star general. Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.